So I looked you up with ChatGPT, and this was ChatGPT's summary of Lennard Kooy. Lennard Kooy is a serial Dutch entrepreneur and tech innovator. He's transitioning from scaling a marketing tech company to building leverage with a singular purpose: make AI automation accessible to everyone.
I'm probably one of the rare people still in the Netherlands that I have this belief that I think in 5 years' time, we work completely different. Like if I already see how I work now, if you sort of, extrapolate that to, let's say, in 5 years, I think that the amount of repetitive tasks or that kind of stuff that people do will just be gone. But then when you look at this technology and how we help companies, that sometimes we get into a company and they automate a process and they fire 18 people or 20 or something.
You see that happen?
That happen.
You see that happening now?
Like I see it like literally like with those clients. And then I think, ooh, okay, maybe this technology is different.
Hi, my name is Diederik Erbay, and in the Midlife Crisis Podcast, we speak to all types of individuals to get to know them better, to learn things about their career, their lives, and the choices that they have made so that we can inspire you to live your best life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Lennard Kooy, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to this new episode of the Midlife Crisis Podcast. By way of introduction, because I always introduce the guests when we start this conversation, I went to ChatGPT because, of course, a big theme in this conversation will be AI as we go through the conversation. So I looked you up with ChatGPT, and this was ChatGPT's summary of Lennard Kooy. So hold on, here we go. Lennard Kooy is a serial Dutch entrepreneur and tech innovator. He's transitioning from scaling a marketing tech company to building leverage with a singular purpose: make AI automation accessible to everyone. His vision centers on natural language, low-code environments, and empowering business users while redefining the role of traditional developers. Does that sound about right?
I think professionally it's quite spot on.
Yeah.
Happy that I have a summary in ChatGPT. That's always.
I haven't done it with myself, by the way, so maybe I'm going to do that after this episode. Yeah. See if my ego is still intact after that.
Yeah. But no, professionally is what I do. Yeah.
And then maybe just to add from my side, a bit of personal information as well, because we all know AI isn't flawless, right? So it took a lot of the business side here. You're currently 36 years old, married, father to 2 children, 4 and 2. And you founded quite a few companies up until now. It's quite impressive. We were just saying before the episode what you've already done in your 36 years, but we'll dive into that. But that's you, I guess, in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's me.
If we go back in time and we go to, let's say, your youth, because we're going to get onto the different companies and the AI companies you're involved in now, which is Leverage. Can you explain to me, baby, a bit about your upbringing, what that was like, and what you were up to in those days?
Yeah, sure. So I come from a place that nobody actually knows called Bossenduin, which is a very small, I wouldn't even call it a village. It's 7 streets with houses. Yeah. And there's a restaurant and a tennis club. And I lived there pretty much my entire childhood. So we moved there when I was 2 years old. So we lived between 2 places called Zeist and Bilthoven, and I went to school in Bilthoven, so I kind of spent my upbringing in that place as well. I would relatively say it's quite affluent where I came from. But then, funnily enough, my parents were in that surrounding the least affluent, but still, I mean,
it's all relative.
Yeah, it's all relative. I think like when I remember my childhood, it was quite without fiction. So my parents were always together. They're still together. They're now married for 52 years, which is insane if you think about it. And I had a lot of friends that stayed my friends till this date. So I have a lot of friends that I know since I was 3 years old. So very tight group. Went to primary school, then to high school with them. And everything actually just always went well. I never had troubles with grades. In high school, I at some point stopped going to school, which was quite interesting when I was 14 or something.
And why was that?
Yeah, I just
You weren't interested.
I wasn't interested.
No.
And funnily enough, the school thought I was okay as well.
You were doing well enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember at some point I think I was 15 or something, and then I had to go to the principal together with my father. And what's this about? He said, "Okay, yeah, I have here a list. In the last 2 months, you skipped 90% of all classes." Yeah, okay. And the funny thing was just, and that's okay, but for Dutch you only have a 6. So you do have to go to Dutch from now on. And that was basically it. So that was my high school was also quite untroubled. Yeah, so like a lot of people have these maybe moments in time where there is something happens. Like your father or your parents part ways, or there is maybe a sister together. I didn't have any of that.
No.
So it was.
And I mean, you've turned out into, like ChatGPT also refers to you as a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Were you already entrepreneurial as a teenager? Were you already setting up small businesses?
Yeah.
Did you have side hustles? Were you already interested in that type of stuff?
Yeah, I was, which is interesting. My parents aren't entrepreneurs. My father worked for the government, but they were very much like, do whatever you want to do, and they did help in some of these things. So, like a lot of people just got a regular job, or let's say they delivered pizzas or something. And I had this thing where if you go golfing, we had a golf court, the pond.
Yeah.
And you have to, people have to collect all those balls from the driving range. So I started doing that. But it paid,
in one of these carts.
Yeah, but it paid extremely well, relatively. So I got like $20 back then, was quite a bit of money per hour, sort of, per time that it was fixed. At some point I thought, yeah, I can do this myself, but I have this friend and he's willing to do it for 10. So why don't I outsource the entire week to all my friends? Yeah. So every day one of my friends did it, and I got 20. So I got it was 6 days a week. I got $120 a week, and then I had to pay them 60. So I was sort of making money just by, and then sometimes it's.
So you were already the CEO of that little enterprise, you could say.
Yeah. Huh? And then at some point I started buying and trading cars. Just before I was 18. So my father was always into classic cars, and then he said, hey, your first car, you have to buy it, but I can help you. And so we started browsing for a car and then bought an old MG that we still had to fix up. So it was fixer-upper, started fixing up. Sold that, made a bit of money, so it's quite easy, so start doing that as a sort of a side hustle. Yeah. Actually kept doing that throughout my university. So at some point, I think in total, before I started working, I bought and sold about 30 cars, mostly old Jaguars that I imported from the US. So I always had these.
You always had these little things going on. Yeah, and did you do that by yourself, or with friends, or?
By myself or with my brother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those were the flavors.
And then moving into university, we went to the same city, right? We both studied in Rotterdam. That's where we know each other from. And I actually got to know you when you first arrived in Rotterdam. We went to the same student fraternity, and you need to go through a hazing period. And I was the one that was, of course, leading that period with you, who was just joining at the time. And I can remember very clearly from that time that anything we put forward to you, any task we asked you to do, when we put you under pressure, you always seemed very cool. You wouldn't be phased very quickly. It seemed like you were always in control, and you did it with a bit of a smile, with a bit of a smirk. Do you recognize that? Is that something that
I think
fits with your character?
Yeah, like my wife is a psychologist, so she I have this entire analysis about myself
every day.
No, so she's not like that, but she sometimes does do the mirror. And I think in general, I'm like I'm not, let's say, affected by emotion that much. Doesn't mean I don't have it, but I'm not. Let's say if someone dies or if something bad happens, it's sort of I consume it and then I park it and that's it. So the next day I can just go to work basically, and I have that in every aspect. So if someone is shouting at me, yeah, maybe in the moment I shout back, but it's always sort of relative. So it doesn't really affect me that much. And that sounds like, hey, that's really nice, but it also has a downside because it's often a bit harder to connect to people or to relate to their emotion. So I totally recognize it, right? So I like in that moment, like, yeah, what's the worst that can happen here? I don't care. Yeah, I'll do. Yeah, I have to crawl through the mud. Yeah, I'll crawl through the mud, right? There's no emotional attachment to it. But I have that in every aspect in life.
Yeah, because I think it was very apparent that you were with a bunch of friends at the time, I can remember, that came from the same area as where you came from.
Yeah.
And your friends were much more emotional. They
Yeah.
were much more easy to trigger.
Yeah.
And you were very, very cool in your ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is sort of, that still remains.
Yeah.
And
it's still a useful trait to have now in the work that you do or in your role as CEO?
Yeah, I think it's very useful. Like I'm a startup CEO, and startups have a lot of ebbs and flows, and I always call them bipolar. And if you're very affected by emotional or by things emotionally, and then that is for a startup very hard. Then you have a lot of stress and a lot of burden. I just always think, I go home and then everything sort of washes off. And I think in that role, it's very useful. Yeah.
And when you started working, when you first started working, did you start in a startup straight away, or what did your first jobs kind of look like?
Yeah, so I got my first real job was given to me by the father of a friend of mine, and he owned a company that sold photo books, but it was sort of a half tech company. So they built the software and they also.
And what was it called?
Albelly.
Albelly, yeah.
And I spent 2 years there, I think 2.5 years there as a product owner. And that was just like, he said, hey, come in. Yeah, I have this job. I think you'll be quite good at it. So why don't you do that? And I just started doing that. And I actually liked it a lot. So there was this weird, you had these software developers, so you had to deal with them a bit. You had to understand how it technically worked. But it also had a commercial aspect to it. So I kind of liked that mix. I thought, this sort of makes sense for me. And then I spent a year in Los Angeles as a sort of semi-consultant for a tech company. And then I spent another 2 years in the Netherlands in a very odd job, or 2 years, 2.5, because they hired me to set up businesses. And it was my old CMO from the Albelly company and said, hey, why don't you come here? And I know you're quite entrepreneurial, but why don't you try to just build businesses from within our company? So I did that for 2.5 years.
And was that useful? So you're explaining roughly about 5 years of experience that you had starting your career. Was that useful experience having first worked within a few companies?
Yeah.
And so if people are coming out of university and maybe people listening thinking I should be an entrepreneur straight away, why is it useful to have first done what you did?
I think like if you say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur straight away, and you want to build a company that has a team. So if you just want to be on yourself, I think that could be fine. Yeah. But if you want to build a team, you want to build a bigger company, understanding a bit like how people behave in a professional setting and the complexity of people and organizations and how to do that properly helps a lot. I mean, you can only get so much from ChatGPT. A lot of it is just experience, sort of intuition. Like if someone says A, I say B. And I think like having been in an environment where there are just people and there's growth and there are things that you can learn from really helps. Isn't to say that if you're very talented that you can just get it from ChatGPT and sort of instinctively know what to do. But I think
there are always exceptions.
For a lot of people, I think I would advise, hey, do a proper job first. Don't do it too long, because that's the pitfall, I think, for a lot of people. Then they start a job and then they get stuck there. And then at some point, it's very hard to leave that train. right? You get like promotion,
Becomes comfortable.
you get children, and you
Yeah.
have to take care of them, and
Yeah.
then
Your cost of living goes up.
yeah, if you want to be an entrepreneur, I would say, hey, do 3 or 4 years in a company, and then instead of switching to your next job, you switch to being an entrepreneur.
And when did you found your first company? So what was the first time you really made the jump into?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a like the first real company that
Real
I
company,
owned was Storytech, but I counted at some point. I had like 8 BVs, like limited entities before that. I did all these things. I had a brand that sold men's underwear. I had like that a trading company became a car leasing company. I had a web development agency, a teeny tiny one. I had all these sort of things.
In varying success.
Yeah, various, and most of them made zero money. The one that made most money was actually the car trading, because that was just a trading company. The boxer shorts, we sold quite a lot, but still managed not to make any money. So that was quite interesting as well. So the first proper company was Storytech. And that is, I think, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that. I didn't found it, so it was an odd one. So because I was setting up all those companies for that other company, my brother-in-law at some point said to me, "Why don't you just do it for yourself?" And I wanted to do that for a year at that point in time. Said, "Okay, let's try to find a company that we take over or buy, or get a group of people that can help me
acquire it."
And we started browsing, and then we just stumbled upon this company, which was sort of an agency, and had like 5 people. And then we bought out progressively the owner of it, and I became the CEO. So they were already doing business for a year or a year and a half when I came in.
And what kind of revenue were they doing at the time when you acquired it?
I think on a yearly basis, maybe 100 grand or so.
Okay.
Yeah, so not a lot.
No. And in the end, you grew that company to what kind of revenue?
Yeah, again, it's an easy question, but a complicated. But when I left, that company was, or the P&L I had was 480 people, and we did about 60 million in revenue. So around that mark. But the company that I sold, so I sold it to a company. When I sold it, there were like 70 employees, and we were doing like 7 or 8 million. But then the guys who sold me asked me to become the CEO of the portfolio of company that they had. So then it became a lot bigger in the last 2 years that I stayed there. Yeah.
And was that the first time you learned about AI and had dealings with AI?
Yeah. So I was already sort of the CEO of the group. I call it the group when generative AI came into the world. We had some stuff with AI, like if you're in software, you do stuff with AI or more machine learning. But that's not how people now see it. So
machine learning, just for context for the listeners, is a subset of AI and has been around for a very long time.
Decades,
right?
If you use Google, that is sort of...
Yeah, but it's not the generative AI that you're referring to now.
Now that the entire world knows this, that sort of became, that was end of 2022, and then OpenAI launched this chat interface on their model. They already had the model for quite a while, but nobody was looking at it. And then they had the chat interface and everyone could interact with it. So that it sort of became this worldwide phenomenon. And I was in marketing technology, and so we were, let's say, the first affected. Or I always explain to people, like, we had a product that helped companies create ads, like adverts. What is an advert? It's pixels and words. If you look at a commercial, it's pixels and words.
Yeah.
And what was AI really good at in the early days? Words and pixels. So when sort of that generative AI came up, it's like, ooh, there's something here. You didn't have to be Einstein to kind of figure that one out. So we were one of the first companies really trying to bring it into our product, trying to, let's say, reap the benefits.
And when was this? What year are you roughly referring to?
Early 23.
Early 23, okay.
Yeah, so let's say 2.5 years roughly ago. But back then it was quite painful to actually make it work, because ChatGPT 3.5 was actually really not smart. So it messed up more than it sort of gave you.
But you did realize at that moment in time, we need to be on the ball here. We
Yeah.
need to do something with this.
And initially it was really, okay, this is going to affect marketing tech a lot. And then quite quickly on, for me, it became apparent, this is going to change the world.
You had that insight straight away.
Yeah.
You recognized if this develops the way it's developing.
Yeah, I think the first time I had it, like really had it, it's an interesting insight. But apart from professionally, just on where I was, I'm building a holiday house in Texel, and at some point I have to get a permit, and it's quite strict there. And I had to give them a document that was about 80 pages long on how the birds were affected and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I had to get a quote for someone to do that, and they quoted me 15,000 euros. Because all these things, right? They have like
the flight pattern of the bird, the nesting.
Will this impact, let's say, they have an airport close by. Will this affect air control? That kind of blows your mind. Anyway, so then I thought, but I was reading like an example, like and I just made an AI project out of it. And I had the entire thing with it back and forth. In 3 hours, I made the entire thing. I submitted it, got some feedback, and it was okay. And it saved me 15 grand.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, but if it can do this and it can do that in my professional, in my business, then where does this end? So that was sort of like an epiphany moment for me. It's like, okay, this will change how we will do things professionally. Which was also the moment in time that I started to think about, okay, should I leave this company that I currently have? Because at some point it became so big that it's very hard to move.
Yeah.
It's much easier to move like a small mini than a container ship.
Yeah.
So I thought, I can either spend a lot of time trying to make it successful here, or I can just get rid of this container ship and buy a mini again. And that's when I got out of that business and started this new one.
I read a quote from you on LinkedIn where in the message when you left Storytech, you said, a startup is like a band. You don't want to leave it, but sometimes you have to go solo. So that was the moment where you said, okay, I have an idea. Did you already have the idea for Leverage at that time, or?
Yeah, because it originated from the company that I had, because we had all these developers, and I'm a product guy, so I have all these ideas. And should we do A and B and C? And then what I saw was that we had quite a lot of struggles to actually make that reality. Yeah. And so what I was seeing is like, okay, you can do a lot with AI, but a lot of people are just not used to the concept yet. They don't understand it technically, but also just from an abstraction level. So can we build something that will help bridge that gap? Can I make a normal developer an AI developer? Can I make you as a non-developer build stuff through AI? So that problem that I had in my previous company is sort of bridging that gap between what people want to do with AI and what they can do with AI. That originated from there. And that's the idea that we started Leverage with.
Because can you explain in very simple terms what Leverage is and what Leverage does?
Yeah.
For people that have little to no AI background, what do you actually do for problems? What do you do for companies? What problems do you fix?
So we help companies to automate processes through AI. That can be any type of process, could be incoming orders or invoices, etc. So repetitive processes that you can it typically solve very well with an AI, but it's currently being done by humans. Okay. And if people, they use ChatGPT, right? Most of the listeners will. But that is, you have to tell it every time what to do, which is quite inefficient if you're, for example, handling 10,000 invoices every month. Then going to ChatGPT and saying, hey, here's another invoice. Can you, summarize it for me?
Yeah, you still have to take action.
Yeah, that is not let's say, an efficient path. So we build a platform that allows you to sort of, build all the rules in AI, and it consistently applies those rules all the time. That's basically what we do.
And as a product, you have integrations with all types of other tools.
Yeah.
That allows to build that automation in the background.
Yeah, get data and send it somewhere. Yeah.
Okay.
So everything you can think of, from ERPs to Outlook to whatever you can integrate with. And then you build out these workflows, which is often just mimicking what a person is doing.
I hope you're enjoying this episode. Before we continue, a quick word about our partner and sponsor, Longevity. As we grow older, we all want to sustain peak performance, both mentally and physically. Longevity is a company that will do this for you by creating health insights and an action plan by which you can live your best life. So if you're interested, check the link below. And I read another LinkedIn post from one of your colleagues. And he said, enterprises buying AI are like your grandma getting an iPhone. They want to use it, but they need you to set it up for them. What is the context behind that? Can you explain, like, how are you working now with companies to do this, and what's the struggle there?
Yeah.
Are companies understanding it? Are they seeing the value?
More and more. So a year ago, there was a lot of hesitation from people still. That hesitation is gone. They want to do it, but now it's more like, how can we get it done? And like what you see with a lot of enterprises, they already understand, okay, yeah, so AI is a thing, right? It can solve all these things. I can do it in ChatGPT, but I can't, right? So yeah. And they need hand-holding.
Yeah.
Hand-holding in where in their business they should apply it, and then also how to get it to a point that it actually
It works.
Yeah. And actually solves the problem. And that's say what we mean by that quote is that, like, yeah, your mother, yeah, she wants to use an iPhone, but the barrier of actually doing it and buying it and installing it, and then people are resistant to change. So we help companies with that change.
That's the main thing you need to overcome. You need to overcome that barrier of implementation.
Yeah.
And in your current role as a CEO, I asked one or two colleagues what you are like as a CEO currently. I mean, for people who don't know, you've raised quite a bit of money already with leverage. I think it's somewhere in the area of 5 million.
Yeah.
You recently did a round with Peak. Again, Peak is one of the biggest investors in the Netherlands with regards to startups and scale-ups. So there's quite a lot already riding on this. You said you have 16 people already working for you. And one of your colleagues described you as a CEO that sets the bar really high internally for the organization. And he mentioned somebody that you look up to in a business perspective, who is the guy's called Frank Slootman.
Yeah, look up, but yeah, I can explain. Yeah.
Can you maybe give a bit more explanation about that? Do you recognize that as your role as a CEO to amp it up, as the book is called from Frank Slootman?
Well, so like, because this is sort of my second real endeavor, and the first one wasn't unsuccessful, I think it's human nature to try to do better, right? That is sort of, what's the fun in trying to do what I already did? So I said, okay, how can I do better?
Yeah.
And I think if you look at the Netherlands, like, the ambition level in general is quite low when it comes to startups and scale-ups. Like
the thinking,
the
ambition in general.
To San Francisco, it's like really low, but even in comparison to Paris or London or something. So when I started this company, I said, okay, can I change that? Can I make this as ambitious as something that would start in San Francisco? And that means that you set the bar quite high, right? So it has to be better than my old company, and it has to be as ambitious as in San Francisco. And then you ask a lot from people. I only want to work with people that I think could also work for a startup in San Francisco, or that are better than the people that I worked with in the past. So that translates into an expectation pattern for the organization, for good and bad. And if you then, let's say, take a guy like Frank Slootman, he's sort of the embodiment.
Can you explain a bit who he is and what his philosophy is?
Yeah. So he's a Dutch guy who went to the US quite early on, and he's been the CEO of all these big companies, ServiceNow, Snowflake. If you're not in tech, I won't say anything, but they are, let's say,
massive companies.
And he brought them to market. So he has a specialty in IPOing companies. And he wrote this book about his philosophy. And his main point.
The title of the book is by the way, Amp It Up. Amp It Up.
But his main point that as a CEO you have one task, and that is to create urgency. That's the only thing you have to constantly do, create urgency. So if someone comes to you and say, I'll have it done next week, you ask, why not tomorrow? If someone says, hey, we'll get to 500K for this sales guy at the end of the month, he asks, why not 1 million? And so he is this constant, pusher of how can I create urgency in every aspect of my business, which I think it's probably, he takes it so far that it's probably a terrible guy to work for. And I have to sort of make my own version of it, but you can see that it delivers results, right? He does.
And how do you do that in a practical sense?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't believe in copying behavior. So you consume that information and you think, okay, how do I apply it in my own way to scenarios? So I do think a lot when we build a product, then people say, hey, we'll be finished by then. Then I ask them, okay, but how can we make sure it's finished by this point in time? Do we have to make it smaller? Do we have to get more people? So I always try to think of, without just saying, hey, you have exactly the same scope with the same people, do it in less time. I do try to point them towards, hey, but yeah, you're saying 3 months, but let's say we want to do it in 1. What can we do in 1? So it's my flavor of it, because Frank just says, yeah, same thing in 1 month. Yeah. I just say, okay, how can we make it fit in 1 month?
You turn it into more of a conversation.
I try to turn, and that people start understanding, okay, but there's a lot of value of getting it in 1 month. But then what can we have in 1 month? Yeah. And I do that in a lot of scenarios with sales, or like, okay, yeah, how much can we do in the coming 3 months? And that's why people think, yeah, a lot of people will probably internally say it's a bit demanding.
One of the other things I heard is you push your colleagues to think AI first, right? To be AI native. What does that mean, actually? And what does that look like in practice? And why would you want to be AI native?
Yeah, so I think I'm probably one of the rare people still in the Netherlands that I have this belief that I think in 5 years' time, we work completely different. Like if I already see how I work now, if you sort of, extrapolate that to, let's say, in 5 years, I think that the amount of repetitive tasks or that kind of stuff that people do will just be gone. So I honestly feel that this technology will change society. Yeah. And then I look at a lot of businesses and then it still doesn't. And sometimes also internally for us, like people just can come in and they do it like they did it. Yeah. And then I sit next to them and say, okay, but I mean, why are you doing that? Like you just open this and do it like this and it goes like 10 times faster. So because I have this belief, I sort of push people to think that way. Say, okay, now you're going to do outreach if you're a sales guy. Yeah, you can type all the emails manually. You can maybe automate a part, or you can just have AI generated. What do you think goes the quickest? Yeah, the AI generate one. And then they say, yeah, but it's not the same quality. So, okay, but let's test it out. And often it happens to be that like the output of the AI is maybe better than the... So I just try to get people in the mindset, like try everything with AI first. And only if it doesn't work, try the other way. While the standard is I try it the way that I know. And then sometimes when it's really apparent that AI will do a better job, I'll pick AI. And I just try to turn it around.
Yeah. And I think one of the outcomes for that type of thinking is that in the end, you will need less people internally in your organization to run certain functions. Can you maybe give an example of that, of something that you're doing within Leverage now with AI that kind of already shows that outcome?
Yeah. I just gave you this example this morning, but I think it's the one that people can relate to really well. Yeah. So we, as a startup, we do a lot of recruitment. So we get money, and with money you hire people. So, and because we're a startup, we also get quite a lot of applicants for a role. So typically about 300 or something. And like back in the days, in my old company, I had all these internal recruiters running around.
At Storytech.
Yeah. Like doing the assessment of all the resumes and then doing a 15 or 20 minute call to kind of do a pre-assessment, and then it had to move to the hiring manager and all that sort of thing.
Because how many people did you have then at that time doing that type of work?
Yeah, I think at some point 7 internal recruiters. Yeah.
7, okay.
And what we do now is basically you apply And then there's an AI that assesses your resume and your letter, and it matches it with our values and the job and let's say what we wrote down as specs that we want. And then it sort of automatically declines 70% of the...
Makes first shift.
Yeah, and then the rest actually gets an email saying, hey, you progressed to the next role or next phase, and they get a number to call. And
A
that
telephone number.
is an AI. And that AI does a 20-minute phone call with you, and actually works really well. I mean, it's an AI, right? No, you know it's an AI.
Yeah.
But it's a natural conversation. And then that AI gives it to another AI with here's the transcript of the call, and that AI does an assessment and sends us a summary saying, hey, this was the conversation, this one went well, this didn't went well, and we have 4 scores, and they're scored. And then you can get a 20 if you're, let's say, nobody ever got a 20. It's a very harsh AI. But if you're below 12, you get declined.
Okay.
And then the rest we actually speak to. But that already saves, say, 90% of the
time.
Of the time.
That internal recruiters normally would have spent on doing all of this.
Yeah. Or hiring managers, because often a recruiter can only do so much, and then at some point it's handed over to a hiring manager and they spend time with it. So that's just a huge time save. And yeah, we have this everywhere. Like employee onboarding is all AI. You get an agent to talk to and all that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Because it sounds very much like if you continue to do this and others start to, let's say, work in this fashion, that we're all going to be out of a job, right? There are people that believe, Elon Musk, for example, says that why am I even making the effort to set up all these amazing companies? Because in the end, that type of work is going to be taken over by AI anyway. Do you believe in such a future? How do you see that working out?
Yeah, to be honest, I struggle between it. So on the one hand, if you look at, let's say, the past, and I studied history, every technology advancement created more jobs in the end than that it sort of cut.
Yeah.
So purely based on that, you would say, hey, that is not a valid fear. But then when you look at this technology and how we help companies, that sometimes we get into a company and they automate a process and they fire 18 people or 20 or something.
You see that happening.
Yeah, that happens.
You see that happening now.
Like I see it like literally, like with those clients. And then I think, ooh, okay, maybe this technology is different. And Elon Musk thinks so, and a lot of people think so. So it could be. And if that happens, to be honest, I don't think that's great for society.
No.
Because we're ingrained to work and we like structure and it gives us purpose and all that sort of thing. And then if you can't work anymore, I think for a lot of people, especially from our generation, that will be, a lot of people will get depressed. And so I sort of hope it isn't true, but sometimes I fear it is true. And if I see how intelligent those models are and what they're still doing to progress it, I think for a lot of jobs, like if you're not in sort of strategic, creative, or human interaction work.
You mean manual labor?
Yeah, or manual labor.
Or
yeah. Yeah. So if I look more like at the services company, but manual labor, I think for now is fine to an extent. So you have this Dutch company and they have an AI that does bricklaying. It's a machine that has an AI that sort of does bricklaying. Yeah. Not sort of, it does.
And does it very well.
And does it very well. So even manual labor has sort of, but I think it's safer. But then if you look at desk jobs currently, like you have, if it's sort of strategic, creative, or it requires human interaction, then I think you're, at least for the time being, quite safe. But in all honesty, a lot of the jobs, even high-paid ones, are not only that. Like you put stuff in a CRM, or you draft a contract, or you, I don't know, look at a new pricing strategy.
There are always repetitive tasks in every job.
Yeah. And if you're very honest, for a lot of these cases, an AI can do a better job. And
so what kind of advice would you give to people who are listening? I mean, they're not going to go out and find a different job based on what you were saying is more safe at the moment, but to get involved with AI yourself so that you better understand what is happening currently in the world around you, what would you advise people to do?
I think like information consumption is different for everyone. So take something that you listen to a lot of podcasts. So listen podcasts about some good AI people because there's a lot of trash out there as well. Some people consume information a lot better by just doing things. Like, hey, I'm gonna do all the stuff in ChatGPT myself, or I want to learn how to code, so I'm going to go download Cursor and just try it, something like that. So it really depends on who you are as an individual. I would really always say take something that is close to home, that you like, and that's already in your system. But the biggest thing is, let's say, remove the blinders. If you're in support, I mean, that's a job that won't exist in 2 years. I can guarantee that, right? That's just not going to
That's
happen.
already happening.
Yeah. So you can just think this isn't happening, and wait until you get fired. Or you can think, hey, but if I'm that support guy that can actually sort of apply AI and orchestrate AI and sort of be the expert in AI rather than the guy at the receiving end of it, then that's a good place to be for now.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is, let's say, be open, consume information in the way you want, but do consume information. Yeah.
It's funny because this one of your colleagues told me that you have a tattoo.
Yeah.
Something totally different.
Yeah.
And can you maybe tell me what that tattoo? Of course, everybody wants to know where is it, right? And then what does it say?
So not a lot of people know this actually. So obviously my friends, etc., because you sit at the pool. But
I got some inside information.
Yeah. So it's here on the let's say on my side.
Yeah.
Under my left arm, and I got it when I think it's already like almost 15 years ago, 14 years ago. I was still working at I had a job. That was the first time I had a job, and it basically says. Start a company because otherwise you'll spend your life making money for someone else. That's basically the gist of it. And it was sort of I always knew that I couldn't do an employment for the rest of my life. But I did make a conscious decision to sort of start working somewhere. But when I did, I sort of had to tell myself to remember that I had to get out of that job. Once I got out of it, what I wanted to get out of it. So it was that was the reason I got it. Still don't regret it. Yeah.
And then you became an entrepreneur, right? I mean, so for you it was a bit of a trigger, it was a reminder, listen, I'm doing something now, but this is not what I'm meant to be doing. I need to remind myself of that every day.
Yeah.
Do you think that generally anybody can be an entrepreneur? Do you believe that it is for everybody, or?
No.
No. And why not?
No, and I also don't put it in a pedestal or something like some people do. I think some people are just happier and better off not having the burden and the stress that often being an entrepreneur gives you. And like we said earlier in the conversation, I'm quite, let's say, flat in my emotions.
Yeah.
So if something goes wrong, I'm okay, right? So, and if this company goes bankrupt, I think, yes, fine, I'll start a new one. But a lot of people that are, let's say, more close to their emotions, and they really feel the ups and downs a lot more. It also gives a lot more stress.
Yeah.
So I would actually say that I think only about 5% of the people in the world are happier as an entrepreneur than they are in just a regular job.
Because what kind of character traits should people recognize in themselves to know if they would be a successful, well, not even a successful, but to be an entrepreneur? What kind of character traits do you need?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is that you handle adversity and, let's say, that ambiguity, that you handle that well. That you don't, if you find yourself being home a lot, let's say being stressed because it's not going well in your job, then it's probably not a good idea to become an entrepreneur, because your entire life is that. Right, especially in the early days, right? It's always, sometimes it goes well, and then the next day you get called by a client and your world crumbles. And if it then really crumbles and you take that home, then I wouldn't want to live like that. if that really affects you. So I always say, hey, if you feel like you can handle that well, then then go for it.
Yeah.
Then also it's handy to be a bit creative and be able to communicate with people. Is a good skill to have as an entrepreneur. I mean, you can be a coder, you don't have to, but even for them at some point, the really good ones, they understand how they explain their solution. But the first one, I think, is paramount.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people that are very smart and very creative, but they don't handle that well, and then they just
Crumble.
crumble.
And so you always hear a lot about work-life balance, and listening to a lot of other podcasts, the top entrepreneurs and CEOs in the world always call that out to be bullshit, right? They say if you want to build something successful, you need to give it your all, and you need to make concessions in other areas of your life. How do you see that, and how do you do that? How do you, let's say, handle that for yourself with the family at home?
Yeah, so in principle, I 100% agree. Right, I have never seen a billion-dollar company built that has an entrepreneur that values work-life balance.
Yeah, with part-timers.
Doesn't happen. Never happened. Will never happen, I think. But that doesn't mean, so I think I work relatively a lot. But I also value my family time. So I don't think it's an absolute thing. But if I'm very honest, I also know that the likelihood that I'll build a 100 billion company is quite low. Not only because I'm probably not intelligent enough, but also because I value it too much. Because I want to get home every day. I try to be home at 6 and at least have 1.5 hours with my children. I sort of value that a lot. And if you look at Frank Slootman, I mean, he just doesn't care.
No.
He just sits through that 1.5 hour that his wife is feeding the children, and then stays for another 3 hours, and then sees them maybe on Sunday morning. So that is sort of a total commitment. Yeah, more hours is more productivity. So the entire work-life balance, I don't think it's a real thing. But I do think, let's say, if you really want to be successful, then you shouldn't value it too much.
No. But if you do look at leverage now and all the plans you have, looking in 10 years' time, what will leverage as a company look like, and what will you be doing? Are you still working on leverage in 10 years' time, or have you gone on to do other things?
Like you, that I'll still have it in 10 years, not big. The intention here was always, hey, can we build something big quickly? And then again, sell it. And it's also, if you work with venture capital, that's also expected from you.
Yeah.
So you know when you get venture capital in that they expect to get their money back at some point, because that's how they work. So if you tell them, hey, I'm going to do this for 20 years, they won't invest in you. And I know from my previous company, I stayed there for 7 years. And that was a good point in time to quit. I've sort of seen it.
Yeah.
So I also know that like the chance that this will excite me for more than 7-8 years, that's
not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
No. Moving a bit to the end of the episode, we have a voice note from somebody in your network, somebody that you know. That's always what we do at the end of every episode. So I'm just going to ask you to put on the headphones, and I'm going to let you listen to a small little voice note. You hear this?
Leonardo, this is Thomas speaking. I got a message from Diederik, so I had some time to reflect on our relationship today. And it's actually quite crazy to think that it's already been 15 years ago that we met in the Viscam. And to think about that those two students would end up building two companies together is quite crazy, actually. And after we both moved to Amsterdam, we've basically ended up living around the block from each other for all these years. So now that you moved to Zuid, I'm pretty sure it's only a matter of time before Evelien and I will follow. But even more importantly, this also led us to hitting the gym together 3 times a week for all these years. And these gym sessions slowly turned into business meetings, discussing the highs and lows of our previous companies, but also dreaming about new ideas. And eventually these smijt sessies slowly turned into us starting Recur and now Leverage. I am super excited about the business that we're currently building, the team that we're growing, the energy that we've got going right now. We're just getting started. So super happy with that. I can't wait to see what the next 15 years will bring for us, not just as business partners, but also as friends. And hopefully we'll get back into our gym rhythm again soon, at least 3 times a week, right? Anyway, I am really proud of you, and I'm super excited to listen to this podcast when it comes out. Cheers.
That's sweet of him.
And who was that?
Yeah, it's Tom. So it's he works with me. He's one of the co-founders of Leverage as well, and I lived with him in my student home.
Yeah.
So
And you co-founded a business with him before as well?
before this, yeah, sort of.
So that's the second time?
The second time, yeah. It was a side business.
And
yeah.
doing business with your friends, is that a good idea?
Depends on the friend.
Depends on the friends. But he's a
With Tom,
he's a
it
good
works
one.
really well. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the future, I mean, are we going to crack out another 1 or 2 companies with Tom in the future after Leverage, or what does that look like?
I mean, it might be. So I'll do another 2 or 3 companies probably, but it always is like that. You have to find people that match the problem, but also are in that place. Maybe if he sells this one, he wants to go on let's say tour around the world.
Yeah.
So you just don't know. But at this point in time, would happily do it. Yeah.
Okay, well, in rounding off, I think it's amazing what you have done. I think we were discussing it before the episode as well. In these 36 years, if you take a moment, step back and reflect on what you've already done and achieved, right? Being the CEO at Storytech, but then also realizing this pivotal moment where AI was going to come in and then launching this new company. I think there aren't a lot of people that have that insight and have that future vision to then go out and do and actually build what you are building now. So I think that that's pretty amazing. And I just want to wish you all the best with your current endeavors together with Tom. And thank you very much for being here and sharing your view on what the future might look like and bring for the rest of us. And it was great to have a conversation with you about that.
Yeah, of course, it was very pleasant.
And we're going to follow you, and then maybe in a few years' time you'll be back, and we'll see everything that has happened with Leverage. And
I wrote my own Amp It Up book.
Yeah, exactly. You'll have your own book to show. Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, man.
Cool.
Yeah.